Welcome to our special program on the 14th annual meeting of the New Champions, also known as Summer Davos Forum in Tianjin. This year's meeting comes at a critical moment as the world is facing significant downward pressure. The IMF predicts the world economy will only see growth of 2.8% this year as we enter a period of slow growth. How can we leverage the Summer Davos 2023 to identify solutions to shared challenges? Where are the new frontiers for economic growth? And what role will China play in shaping the global economy? I spoke to three distinguished guests to find out. Mr. Dusek, thank you so much for joining us on CGTN.
Thanks for having me.
So the World Economic Forum has been a partner with China for a long time. You know that there are conflicting views about China's economic growth on the world stage. Some see it as creating opportunities, while others see it as a threat. So how does WEF view China's economic development and its impact on the world?
Thanks for having me. We're so excited to be back for the annual meeting of the New Champions 2023, our Summer Davos. You may know we have a long tradition in China holding this meeting. This is going to be our 14th annual meeting of the New Champions. For us and of course the communities that we work with around the world to get a check-in on the Chinese economy, but also on the global economy.
Right.
And so there, just if I could share with you that it is so important for us, and that was also the philosophy for me when I was working on this meeting, preparing it. It's so important that we provide a platform to check in on where we are with the global economy, because we are in a low growth environment. You may have seen the latest numbers from the IMF. It's 2.8% this year, a drop from 3.4% last year. It's also low by the standards of recent history. We've been averaging about 3.2 to 3.4 over the past decade. So we're really in a situation of low growth globally. Now, having said that, we of course need to make sure that this meeting is used to look at how do we get out of this. So there is a certain sense of agency in terms of what are the pathways to grow in the near term, midterm, and long term. And so we really look at those three horizons of growth. And the first one, the most immediate one, is really the fact that we are in China, we are in Asia. If you look at the analysis again, that was recently put out, up to 70% of the growth that we're seeing globally is coming from Asia Pacific. So we need to be aware of the growth markets. There's obvious reopening of the economies after COVID, but we need to take advantage of that and be able, for the sake of the global economy, to build on that. Now, the midterm horizon of growth, as we see it, and it's at the heart of this meeting, it's called the New Champions, is entrepreneurship and innovation. And we are saying that we need a new generation of entrepreneurship and innovation. Now, if you look around, I'm a big fan of the auto industry, so I follow it quite closely. And what I, for example, noticed when I was here in February, after a pause, I noticed, for example, the amazing advancement in terms of the EV, the electric vehicles here in China, and of course that you could go in different sectors. That shows you that despite the challenges that we have, and in this case it was COVID for everyone, still there is tremendous amount of entrepreneurial dynamism and potential that we need to really tap. For that purpose, we are bringing here an amazing cohort of about 150 global innovators. They are unicorns, startups. There are some that are more cutting-edge research entities. We call them tech pioneers. And they would really bring this into the meeting. Of course, there is a big, strong cohort from China. But then there is also a lot of other entities, a lot of other innovators from around the world coming here for this kind of second horizon of growth. How do we unlock that? And we should also be aware that we have these two huge trends that all economies are facing: the digital transition taking advantage of the digital economy, and of course the green transition. And so you will, if you look, I'll share with you that after this, the booklet that we have really with all the profiles of the global innovators, they represent it quite well. Because for example, on the AI, and this could be the year of AI, we have 10% of those global innovators directly related to AI. About 30% of all those coming are using AI in their business or businesses. So just to show that we will be taking these two transitions very seriously with the entrepreneurship theme. And the third horizon of growth that we see, and that's why we are also here, is around, of course, we need to work on it every day. And let's face it, we have headwinds in terms of some geoeconomic developments, but we need to work on cooperation, because if you do not work on cooperation, you will not be able to get out properly and in a sustainable way out of the low growth environment globally. You may have seen the latest numbers, for example, from the IMF. They're saying that if we have long-lasting severe fragmentation in the global economy, it would cost the global economy 7% of the global output, and hitting the most vulnerable around the world. In a nutshell, we have these three horizons of growth, and of course they're relevant also to, as we see it at least, to the Chinese economy, and how along all those three axes, of course, kind of the near term, mid-term, long term, it's so important. We are talking almost a $20 trillion economy with China, and so if the predictions are now for China to grow over 5% this year, that's adding $1 trillion into the global economy this year. So it's really very pivotal that all these opportunities are realized despite the headwinds, and that's why we're here.
As you watch China's economy from close up, what do you make of its ability to navigate these risks, such as the rising geopolitical tensions and sustainability of its economy?
I think, so of course every country is trying to, as you said, navigate this. So it's important, because I think we need to take very seriously the fact that we have not had enough dialogue, and we have also not had enough opportunities to learn about each other. This is, for us, of course, the first time we're gathered here in person for a global meeting with the World Economic Forum. And I think there is really a very important opportunity. Okay, sometimes you can have different views, etc., but it's important that there is dialogue. Now, as I mentioned, there will be issues here that we will be putting on the table, like trade, like climate, like energy transition, and those things, of course, we see, and there are, of course, many experts on, I'm sure, experts on the Chinese economy, but what we see from the work that we do is that we see that, of course, we have major companies from China, also major innovators engaging in the work streams that we do. And why we do them? Because we believe that we need to have public-private cooperation and partnerships to move the needle on net zero, to move the needle on how trade can contribute to net zero, move the needle on how can we actually successfully enable an energy transition that will be both sustainable, but they will also be providing secure energy supply, and that will be inclusive. So we really have a lot of quite complex issues in front of us, and of course China is engaged in shaping some of these and engaging in some of these common challenges. Look at what we saw at the Paris Climate Finance. That's the latest example where important dialogue is being had about how do we actually finance the transition to net zero, with a particular attention to the developing countries.
I want to go back a bit to my first question, because you mentioned China is going to contribute to world economic growth, because it's very sizable growth happening in China. But some countries view China's economic development as a threat or a competitor. What do you make of this?
I think it's very important that, as I said, if we have fragmentation in the global economy, it will have costs, and that's been well articulated by the IMF, by the World Trade Organization. So if you just look at the data and you take a human-centered view, you want to make sure that the most vulnerable people around us, who, by the way, I don't know, I follow it very closely, so if it's well known, if you have inflation, the threshold for the most vulnerable families, even different countries, developing, developed, the threshold is very low. So it's enough that you raise prices of certain basic commodities with inflation, and those people cannot meet their monthly bills. And that can have huge repercussions. So it's really, we're looking at it from this vantage point of how do we make sure that we are an international organization for public-private cooperation. How do we make sure that we provide the necessary dialogue so that decision makers then around the world can see, okay, these are the costs, and maybe these are the pathways for us to work together on certain things so that we can make sure that we take the human-centered approach to really how we think about the global economy.
China is a major market for commodity and resources. What is your assessment of China's demand for such commodities as the economy rebounds from the pandemic?
The Chinese market for us is one of the most important markets. We sell anything between 40 to 90% of our products to China. Our company, Eurasian Resources Group, is one of the world's largest producers of materials for the energy transition, for example, for batteries. So for us, China is the most important market because it is a significant consumer of materials for producing, for example, new energy vehicles. And of course, what we've seen this year is a tremendous increase in activity, business activity, in particular in the new energy vehicle space. Today, the penetration rates of electric vehicles in China are something like 30%. China today has a 60% global market share of electric vehicles, and it's growing very fast. Also, some of the largest manufacturers of electric vehicles, batteries, and associated technology are based here. So for us, this anything related to the new energy transition, to the green energy transition, for us is an important customer market. So for us, China is the center.
And then I believe the new energy industry is booming in China, and that is creating a lot of opportunities for businesses and consumers as well. But geopolitical tensions are creating a lot of uncertainties for global trade and investment flows. How do you view China as an investment destination amid this shifting global landscape?
Well, what we see China today, in particular in the green energy space, it is by far the largest market. So whether it's wind farms, whether it's photovoltaic cells, renewable energy generation, whether it's for new energy vehicles, it's by far the largest markets. It also is the fastest growing market. It also is the most innovative market. So in a way, the global green energy transition is only possible with China. So to talk about fragmentation of supply chains in the green energy transition, it will be impossible to achieve it without having access to the innovation of Chinese company and the manufacturing base of Chinese companies within the supply chain. So we need a global supply chain in order to achieve the Paris greenhouse gas emission targets that the world has set itself. So to talk about fragmentation of the supply chain is makes it very complicated, because we can only achieve these goals if we have open supply chains that are flexible, that are resilient, that are robust, and that are not influenced by geopolitical aspects.
Yes, to tackle these common challenges, we need global cooperation, and the WEF this year is bringing participants from all around the world to build multilateral cooperation on some of the key challenges facing the world today. You talked about innovation, and that is one of the key themes of this year's new annual meeting of new champions, and I know you are one of the co-chairs. What do you think about the innovation as a driving force of the global economy, and how does the resource industry to leverage the power of innovation and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, It's a great honor to be a co-chair to this year's MMC conference here in Tianjin. And we have been talking at the World Economic Forum a lot about how innovation is enabling achieving global targets. For example, the greenhouse gas emission targets. Innovation is going to play an incredibly important role. And it's innovation not just of specific products or specific technology, but it's also innovation in how we work together across a supply chain.
Yeah.
How we work together as governments, companies, civil society. So this multi-stakeholder approach to addressing international problems in itself is an innovation. We started at the World Economic Forum with a group of other organizations, an organization called the Global Battery Alliance in 2017, which has now grown into the world's largest organization, multi-stakeholder organization in the energy storage space, with most of the large automotive companies, the big battery makers, many Chinese companies, and host governments and governments in general. So we have to work differently in order to achieve international targets, and we have to cooperate. And this multi-stakeholder nature of addressing challenges is at the core of what the World Economic Forum does. It brings together different groups to form coalitions and to address global problems.
And China is now very open up to foreign businesses, and China view the relationship with Europe very strategically. How do you view this relationship and its impact on your company's businesses? As we know, China's Prime Minister just wrapped up his visit to Europe. How does the visit leave this economic time?
China, thankfully for the world, has opened up earlier this year. I remember coming here probably a week. Within the first week after China opened up, I returned, and you could really see how the giant was awakening after hibernation for quite a long time, and it's been a force of good for the world. And what I've also seen quite as a positive impact is a lot of visits of Chinese government officials to, whether it's to one of our home countries, Kazakhstan, whether it's to Europe. So it sends the signal that China is opening up to the world. It has always been open to the world, but now with the leadership being very much committed to international activities, international investments, the Belt and Road Initiative, the next phase of the Belt and Road Initiative, it's going to be a very important factor, because China is it's the biggest trading partner for Europe. Right? It is by far the biggest trading partner for Germany, which is my original home country, and it's one of the largest trading partners for most Central Asian countries and most African countries. So China has to be part of the global conversation, and I'm very glad to see that the Chinese government is also encouraging these conversations around the world and being very proactive about it.
Well, you said China's economic rebound is a good force for the world, and appreciate that, but some people or some countries see it as a threat. What do you make of such views about decoupling or de-risking from China?
Well, de-risking is the problem. What kind of problem is being addressed, right? If the problem we're trying to address is to increase economic activity, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to protect the environment, to lift people out of poverty, then we have to cooperate. Right? We cannot fragment the approach to taking to those very large, very global problems. They're not local problems. So we have to work together, and we should not forget that even in an era of uncertainty, in an environment of fragmentation, instability, military conflicts, is we still have to find ways to communicate and work together, because the challenges we have are global problems, and we have to address them as global coalitions.
Well, this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative, and I know that Eurasia was the center of global trade a long time ago. Do you think there is still potential to tap into?
Well, our company, ERG, we did one of the first Belt and Road projects, probably 20 years ago, when we built an aluminium smelting complex in Kazakhstan with the use of Chinese technology, Chinese construction companies, Chinese funding. So our original home country, Kazakhstan, has been at the center of this initiative and has benefited greatly from the development opportunities. So for us, the Belt and Road Initiative is a source of prosperity, of harmony, of win-win around the world, because we cooperate with Chinese partners as part of Belt and Road in many geographies, whether it's in Africa or in South America or in Central Asia. But of course, Kazakhstan being the largest neighbor in Central Asia to China, Belt and Road is very important. And I see great potential for Belt and Road to advance further, particularly around the energy transition and green energy investments. Central Asia has very significant potential in renewable energy generation, and China has the capacity, the industrial manufacturing capacity and the technology to develop this potential in Central Asia. And I think that's going to be the green Belt and Road, as some people call it, has great potential in Central Asia, and I'd like to welcome more Chinese company to engage. We're actually very actively building wind farms in Kazakhstan. It has a very similar wind capacity, wind potential to Western China, to Xinjiang area, so there's great potential for wind generation, wind electricity generation in Kazakhstan.
You are here taking part in the World Economic Forum. What is your observation of the ongoing discussions?
Well, first of all, I'm very delighted to be in China, and I'm very happy for the very specific hospitality that we got. And I think that the world needed a message of peace, a message of collaboration, a message of cooperation, and a message that tries to put all the nations into a track of a better world. Yeah. So it comes through investment, it comes through trade, and it comes through mutual understanding and respect.
Do you think these discussions are constructive towards those goals?
Well, definitely. I think that you have here in something like 1,500 C-level executives, ministers, chiefs of states and governments, and of course representatives of the corporate world. It's a good place to be, to discuss and to shape the future and explore the possibilities and cooperations that are possible. But it's also a political moment. It's not a 100% economic moment, it's also a political moment, so that the decision makers understand that there is a common stake and that we all need to protect this common stake, and it can't work unless we're cooperative and we want to work together.
Yes, so I think that message is really resonating among participants, that cooperation is of urgent priorities right now. And Minister, I know you are responsible for economic inclusion, you're for SMEs, in your opinion, what obstacles do SMEs mostly facing, and what are you doing to support their development?
Well, in Morocco in particular, you know that there is a long tradition between Morocco and China, and we're celebrating today more than 60 years of official recognition of our two states and collaboration between our two countries. Morocco is a country that is very ambitious. You know, we're placed in North Africa, so we're bridging with the bridge between Europe and Africa and the rest of the world. And SMEs are part of a very ambitious strategy that we have of investment, because job creation, welfare of the population comes through investment. And investment might come at first with big companies, with big corporations, but then they need to work with small businesses so that they are the SMEs. The main challenges are on the skill challenge, the digital transition. And of course, SMEs always need ambitious and courageous fiscal policies and support policies. We just launched a program with 100,000 SMEs, and it seems to work in Morocco.
So there are, indeed, SMEs are playing a major role in providing jobs, and we know that the job market is also undergoing tremendous transformation due to the automation, the AI. How is Morocco preparing its workforce?
AI is definitely one of the major challenges in the future. The trends of the labor market are being confirmed. One of the major trends is the transformation from employment to work. basically with this Z generation that wants to work in a different way. AI comes with disruptions. Maybe 1/3 of the jobs will completely disappear, and the 70% remaining jobs will rely on AI in a way or another to be performed. So the idea is that, first of all, if we used to talk before about soft skills as part of the changes that we need to infuse into management and training, now digital skills are one of the skills that we absolutely need to infuse. For instance, in Morocco, what we launched is a huge project that we called the 12 Cities of Skills that His Majesty King Mohammed VI launched, with more than 300 new curricula, and we have complete digital villages in these cities where young students are being trained to bridge the gap, in particular in digital skills. So for us, investing in digital skills is important for us to be prepared to the next generation of jobs.
And when it comes to innovation and job market, one of China's priorities is to empower the youth and women. Could you share that and some of the experiences of Morocco in that regard?
Well, after COVID in particular, we witnessed in the world that the vulnerable population is touched more than any other population in terms of jobs and quality of jobs, in terms of decent jobs in particular. So what we did in Morocco is launch specific programs for these vulnerable populations, and in particular women and youth. So many people do not, they stop working or they stop studying for some reason. So our objective is to offer them a second chance. It's what we call the School of the Second Chance, that offers them vocational training rather than regular training, so that they can accumulate a couple of grades and points in terms of competences and skills, and then get a real life degree that enables them to access to the world of to the labor market, and not necessarily a degree. And this is one of the trends of the market labor. In the future, it will be more based on skills rather than on diplomas. So these are so we have specific programs for hundreds of thousands of people, which is important compared to the scale of Morocco. And I'm very happy to say that we have a very good collaboration with China. After His Majesty's visit to a country in 2016, with a political dialogue, with economic and financial cooperation, but also with R&D innovation and exchange of youth and training. So I think that we have so many things to develop together with this regard.
Indeed, talking about China-Morocco collaboration, we know the forum is talking about a lot of global challenges. We're facing a multi-crisis in the world today. In your opinion, in what areas China and Morocco can further deepen cooperation?
I think that green transition is a good area where we can cooperate together. Enhancing the technological capacities is also an important one. Solar energy, aeolian energy, and so many other areas. And we have a lot of Chinese investments in Morocco, and what is important is that the investments we have are operated under private-public partnerships as well. So we have also very good governance models that shape our relationships, and I think that this is what distinguishes the relationship between China and Morocco compared to many other relationships in the world.
Well, this year marks the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative, and Morocco joined the initiative in 2017. How do you view this ongoing cooperation, and what further potential can China and Morocco tap into?
Already we have a big project in Morocco called the Tanger City Tech project that is entirely done with the authorities and the corporations of your country. So it's a big city of technology that is that receives investments and that is designed with a Chinese, let's say, partnership. I think that since 2017 we had more than 30 memorandums of understanding in so many sectors and areas, and I think that the future of our relationships is very promising, not only economically speaking, because what distinguishes the relationship between China and Morocco is that our two nations are ancient nations with values, with specific DNAs, and there is a civilizational dimension that we don't find in so many other partnerships. Morocco, as you know, the Moroccan football team was able in the World Cup to be part of the semi-finals, and it's part of the investments that we made in our human resources. So exactly what your country does in so many areas. So I think that it's very promising to diversify our partnerships, to make sure our youth, our women, our skills, our talents benefit from the partnerships that we do. This is why we need to reinforce the exchange of skills and studies between our two nations.
Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing with us.
Thank you for receiving me. Merci. Merci.